Actually, nobody is interested in learning. No one, not even the teachers. So it's not about students. Experiential learning, no? That's absolutely a nonsensical term they have invented.
He took a very radical decision of stopping reading completely, and that was a while back, decades back.
I think this decision is what made me really start exploring the world.
You know, you talk about the idea of unlearning as a key to actually learning. Can you share
See, in
for following your heart, whatever
not
felt
really,
right to you?
no,
Oh no, you were trying to fit in.
Yeah, I did not want to fit in at all. But luckily for me, I was able to understand this at a very, in that stage itself.
Yeah,
No?
yeah.
During that time, I took two very important decisions. And in modernity, we have only space for negative rebellion. And negative rebellion means you take drugs, drink, all kinds of things. Yeah? And I was also
About the food,
Yeah.
about the parent force feeding. There's a friend of mine in the US who is a pediatrician, and she said a very interesting observation she made was that only Indian parents come and complain to her, my child doesn't eat. And the American parents say, please, my child is eating too much. It's very strange. In the same place, children going to the same schools.
Yeah.
How is there such an opposite problem? From giving up reading, which I would say is giving up on outside concepts and going deep within to explore how he experiences the world, creativity himself. Let's unravel this mystery with Jinan.
never do anything you don't like to do. And never do 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, educated people
Yeah.
need somebody to tell them
Okay.
everything.
Isn't that the problem of education?
Yeah, it's really actually, it sounds almost as if it's crippling.
Absolutely. The most criminal activity is education, as far as I'm concerned. Total disrespect for life.
Today, we delve into the world of creativity from the standpoint of what is the origin. In human creativity, where do things begin and where do they fall apart? To unravel this mystery, we are very privileged to have the man, Mr. Jinan KB, who would be hard to define because he explores creativity and he took a very radical decision of stopping reading completely, and that was a while back, decades back. And so it's very interesting to really try to understand the kind of deeper awareness that has emerged from giving up reading, which I would say is giving up on outside concepts and going deep within to explore how he experiences the world, creativity himself. So let's unravel this mystery with Jinan KB. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
What does creativity mean to you beyond all the conventional definitions?
Actually, creativity is the very thing that actually enables life to happen. Without creativity, there is no life. Because creativity is what enables you to learn, you know. And it is very difficult for people in modernity to even understand these things because it has been almost in the initial stages, it has been completely removed from their life. Now suddenly there is a hype about creativity. Everybody is talking about creativity. And for them, for one group of people, creativity means art and all that kind of nonsense. You know, and for the others, it is permutation combination of what is known. They will, take something from here, something from here, put it together, and produce a new one. You know, but actually, if you look at natural life, the life of indigenous communities, knowing is happening as they are living. Whereas in modernity, knowledge is what is there, which you read, analyze, imbibe, and then you act on it. It's a complete destruction of life in you, actually speaking.
Mm,
You
mm,
know?
mm. So I
So
think that's quite amazing. It's about turning your whole approach
Yeah.
of rather taking responsibility yourself, of not letting any outside source decide or determine how you're going to perceive the world and yourself.
Yeah, actually, see, what is very interesting about these two is that in the indigenous societies, each individual is actually creating knowledge without having an ego that they are creating knowledge.
Mm.
That's the basic difference.
Mm.
Whereas modernity, nobody is creating knowledge except they are reading, reasoning, and thinking they have understood, but highly egoistic. You know.
Yeah.
So actually, see, if you look at the fundamental paradigm difference, what I say about modernity and tradition is this. Tradition, what I mean by this is that literates and illiterates. It's a better way of putting it. Because literates are engaging already with ready-made information. They learn the word, which is ready-made. Whereas illiterates learn the world with their senses.
Yeah.
This is a biological activity, whereas this is a linguistic activity, just a merely a mental activity. So what happens is that it creates two different paradigms.
Yeah.
The paradigm of the literate is paradigm of what I call as product orientation,
Yeah.
meaning you have ready-made knowledge, which is a product, which you analyze and consume.
Yeah.
Whereas the for indigenous illiterate societies, you are in the realm of unknown. There is no ready-made knowledge. So as you live, you are knowing and being.
You're very attentive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you see, when you are in the realm of unknown, the only thing you can do is to observe.
Yeah.
And that also defines your value system. You cannot be arrogant.
Yeah.
You have to be humble because you don't
You
know.
don't know.
You
Correct.
see, so the unknown as a condition actually creates a different kind of beingness in you,
Mm.
which is open,
An
which is
aliveness. Yeah.
absolutely, which is spontaneous, which is humble,
Mm.
which looks at the mystery of the world. Because that's what it is. Whereas the people in modernity, in the literate world, there is hardly any mystery because they already know. Na? You read and you know.
Yeah.
You see, there's
There's
nothing.
only intellectual knowledge, but not really lived
It is not even
experience.
knowledge. Knowledge is a misunderstood
Information.
term. Just an information they have. They assume it is knowledge. It's not knowledge actually.
Correct. Correct.
See?
You emphasize the idea that creativity is not something to be taught, but something intrinsic that needs to be awakened. How do traditional education systems hinder this natural creativity?
Yeah. Actually, the word tradition, we need to be a little careful because this is a very American way of putting tradition. Because for them, they don't have tradition. So whatever they are doing is tradition. You see? Tradition, we have to contrast tradition with modernity. And modernity is arrived because of literacy. And tradition is the practices that people did, connecting with nature, life. And so it was not an egoistic activity at all. Tradition belongs to life itself, how people engaged with. So the destruction of creativity actually begins when modern education is established. In fact, I prefer to use the term illiterate and literate to make it more clear in the sense that uh, these are two different paradigms altogether, completely two different paradigms. Illiterates actually belong to life itself. They are not separate from life. They are being life and they are responding as per the nature's intention. Whereas modernity, which is the literates, take over everything into their control and then they begin to live a life separate from life, separate from
Yeah.
nature,
Yeah.
life and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at modernity, it has misunderstood two fundamental things of life. One is what is knowledge and how is it acquired. Second, because of this, they have completely misunderstood what is a child and how does the child, uh, be in life. Yeah. And only by understanding these two fundamental aspects of life that we can even begin to delve into what are the crises that modernity is
Mm.
facing.
You talk about the idea of unlearning
Yeah,
as a key to actually learning.
yeah,
Can you share a personal experience where, you had to unlearn something to really understand it?
yeah. You see, this again, Slightly long answer
Please.
because, see, I was doing my engineering. And of course, I never liked schools right from my childhood. My parents were teachers. So my father had turned house also into a school,
Oh, okay.
teaching all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I hated schools right from my childhood. And then, of course, like everybody else, you did all kinds of things. And, I did engineering. And while doing engineering, I began to face the fact that actually nobody is interested in learning. No one, not even the teachers. So it's not about students, you know. What I mean by learning is actual creation of knowledge. It is not become pass some silly exam and become an IAS officer. That's not the
Yeah,
I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
I'm talking about to learn means to understand what is happening in life. This I found absolutely missing in education all over the world.
Mm, mm.
It's all about reading a book, trying to understand what others said.
Yeah, memorization.
Absolutely.
Just
So that is the beginning of my questions about, that led me to this understanding, this
yeah,
very root of,
yeah,
learning, which is,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
creativity, etc.
yeah, yeah. How did how uh, actually your parents or background, did that put you off this conventional way of learning?
I don't think so because I think, see, I've been studying children, observing and studying children for the last 40, 50 years, 40 years at least. I've understood one thing that every child resists schooling. But because the educated are so insensitive and so scared, and so they, with all their might, destroy the natural tendency of life to explore.
Yeah,
This is what happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Simple thing, let me tell you. A child wants to eat on their own. It is absolutely not allowed.
The mother has to feed it.
Absolutely. And child always resists. Let's start
Yeah,
from the beginning.
yeah,
When the child is lying down and you are putting, that food into the mouth, it can't even move. Only the mouth can function. Okay? And you put in and it starts spitting. But somehow you collect it together and again keep on putting it, keep on putting it.
yeah.
See, one intent, that one act is good enough. If you are sensitive to understand, it's enough. That is the only way the child can tell you that it's enough. But this insensitive modern people just don't have that sensitivity at all to stop when the life is, because it's not the child's ego that is telling, it's the life that is communicating you. And you have absolutely no sensitivity to life because you think that you can control life. And there begins the journey of total control of living beings.
Mm, mm.
You know,
Yeah,
many, many incidences you can see.
yeah.
A child, a very interesting thing I
So,
find is that
what was the personal experience where you transformed? That's something conventional, which,
um,
if you can remember,
because again, see, all these are, uh, you know, small incidents. You see,
which
one
built
one
up.
very
Yeah.
important thing I want to tell right here, which is that, so I was expelled in third year because I was doing all kinds of things.
Mm.
See,
You were following your heart, whatever
not
felt
really,
right to you.
no, no, no,
Oh no,
no.
you were trying to fit in.
Yeah, I did not want to fit in at all.
Okay.
And in modernity, we have only space for negative rebellion.
Mm,
And negative rebellion means you take drugs, drink, all kinds of things.
mm,
Yeah? And
mm,
I was also doing that.
mm.
Uh, because I want to state this, that people who are doing this they are not antisocial.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
cannot fit into this society which is anti-life. That's the reason. But luckily for me, I was able to understand this at a very, in that stage itself.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
And so during that time, I took two very important decisions, which is that never do anything you don't like to do
Mm,
and never do 9 to 5 job. It was, this, I was in fourth year engineering at that time.
mm,
When I had dropped out, I
mm,
was expelled.
mm,
So before I went in, next year fourth year, I went back and started, completed my thing.
mm.
But before I went, I decided two things. Never do, because I find that 95% of the people in this world, in the modern world, are doing things that they don't like to do. They are somehow fitting in and they are making everybody fit in. Think that is the way to live. You know?
What? Um, I think that the best place to begin this is to really unravel how did you get interested in this? Because I'm almost certain that you were not a conventional young boy, because all this seeking could not have come from there. So if you could help us understand, how
Yeah,
did, where, what were your origins and how
yeah.
was your path? How did all these realizations come?
No, I remember not liking school at all. You know, of course, but I was, first, second, third, and all that because my parents were teachers and they wanted to.
Oh, so you were still,
Well, you see, but only in the initial stages. Initial
yeah,
stages,
yeah.
So, but I hated not only school but my home also, because my home was also turned into a school by my loving father. So he was a very strict father. So, but luckily I was sent to school, hostel when I was in my 10th, 10th year. So from 5th standard, I was in a hostel. So luckily, I was saved from this kind of bullying. Naturally,
Bullying
I,
of
I
parents.
by my parents, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah,
And well, loving parents. I don't want to, create a
yeah,
wrong impression about it. They were well-meaning,
yeah.
but somehow I couldn't handle that. So, so in the school, I studied in Sainik school in Kerala.
Was
Uh,
that very rigid in terms of rules and
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and I was quite a misfit there.
yeah.
And I always maintained my last two, three positions, from first, second, third. I became 29, 30, 31. you know.
So you started
So,
dropping off that learning thing.
yeah. Because, it's terrible to sit inside the classroom, just listen to the teacher without having any idea what he's talking about. We are
Sometimes I
actually
feel,
just making up stories, no?
yeah, I also feel that a lot of people who are used to functioning at the top, like
Yeah,
top three or five, whatever,
yeah.
they become used to a certain kind of attention. And so, what I'm interested,
They
how did you leave
no,
that
no,
attention?
actually, you
How did you
see,
become okay
the
with that?
people who excel in modernity are the ones who have dehumanized themselves.
Mm,
They have given up all their autonomy, their true autonomy. Autonomy is of the being, it's not of your ego. That autonomy, only by damaging yourself, you can fit into the modern world.
mm,
There's no other way.
mm.
You see? Imagine sitting in a classroom, listening to all the nonsense that the teacher is telling, and then storing it up, and then swiftly forgetting it after the exam. What's the point? Two simple questions.
This is so important. I have to share that I was doing my master's in music and at an older age. And I learned it, I did it long distance. I was in the US and everybody was here in college. I came straight for the exams. And so there were some notes I needed of the conventional young girls who were doing their MA in music, all in their early 20s. And I went there and I started asking them, I don't understand this. I don't acoustics of music, lot of theory. And I said, can you just help me understand? So they turned to me and they said, what? Are you thinking you're going to understand this and learn? They said that like this, you will never pass the exam. They said, just memorize. Like next 2, 3 nights, memorize this whole thing. You'll get top notch marks.
Yeah,
That was a huge eye opener for me that because I was much older,
yeah,
I'd realized the value of
yeah,
education. That if you're learning, you have to understand something. If you don't understand it, what's the point? But you
yeah.
are so bang on that this
Yeah.
is unfortunately how the education just memorize and do it.
Yeah. So it is actually very important to understand how Indian classical music is getting destroyed by modern people, and how classical music always, even with that organization, was always spontaneous and creative. So this is the thing that we need to understand, that how did, again, if you look at the classical music traditions, nobody performed. They always were practice. You see?
Yeah,
Even when you sit, people are listening, they are not in a performance mood.
yeah.
They are in a, that
An experiential,
practice,
yeah, just
practice.
an experience that
Yeah,
you're just experiencing it. You're
absolutely.
allowing a flow of a very natural organic kind to
Absolutely.
unfold.
So, so if you actually look at the traditional systems itself, when I look at the Indian systems, you can look at one, the folk tradition, other one is the classical. See, both were able to retain their creativity and spontaneity to a large extent because the whole process of teaching was absent.
Mm,
That's what the
mm,
thing.
mm, mm.
You see, what happens in modernity is that it is, first of all, you have ready-made knowledge and people who have this. Then now, so the attempt is now to teach that to somebody else.
Yeah,
Whereas in traditional societies, traditional systems, it is the onus on the learner to learn. Teacher has nothing to do there. Teacher's job is to excel in what the teacher is doing,
This is so
never to
powerful.
teach.
This is so powerful. Ustad Zakir Hussain, these were his words. He said, I teach nobody. He said, people learn. Those who come to me, if they want to learn, they will learn. But I don't claim to teach them. And this is just so connected with what you're trying to
Absolutely.
say.
So,
But coming back, how did you have the courage at a young age to start actually deciding, okay, now I don't care about these marks or whatever respect I get because of that. I want to just explore.
no, I don't know whether I can take any credit for any of these things. That's the way my life was. That's all. Somehow maybe I was guided, or I don't know. I don't know what to say that, because I never took any decisions of that nature. I never confronted any issues. I felt this is what I should do, and I did it. So not by deciding, no, that I don't want to do. No, somehow I never felt that. So in engineering, in third year, I was expelled. So luckily, one of the teachers had a school. He told me, why don't you spend time there? So the question I was asking around that time, engineering, was that, why is nobody interested in learning? Second question I asked was that, why is that we keep hearing Charles Laws and Boyle's Laws and all these Western names and not an Indian name? Now, I want to clarify here, this is not because of patriotism. I felt that as an authentic being, this is a question you should ask, not because of patriotic fervor, but every living being should be creating knowledge. Why is it that it is singularly absent in all the modern educational paradigm, that you only hear the Western names?
Yeah,
You know,
seriously.
you know.
Yeah.
So I began to wonder that why is it that nobody is asking this fundamental question? But at the same time, I remember also reading Bruno, in that 13th, 14th century, when he was burned at stake by stating that the earth is round, or I don't exactly remember what was the context, but what he told was against the church, and he was burned at stake. So here I was looking at people who were committed their life to inquiry, whereas we produce these institutions which nobody is interested in learning. So this was the contradiction. So I also want to state that I am not against West nor against India. Let that be very clear. I am for humans, I am for life. So that's the context in which we should be looking at.
Yeah. And that's how you started to perceive things. And that
Yeah.
gave you the courage to take this path. So,
Yeah.
did you graduate or no finally?
No, no. The thing is that, I was actually just living very spontaneously and honestly to what was happening at that moment. So luckily, I was never thinking about future. But, one decision I took in the third year, that expulsion year, was um, that I never do anything I don't like to do. Second, I will never do 9 to 5 job. So factories are out, looking for a job was out. But of course, then I went back in fourth year, finished my degree, fourth, fifth, final year. I never took up any job. But luckily, I came to know about NID, Ahmedabad, Design Education.
Yeah.
And I applied and I got it.
To
But
go
of
and
course,
teach there?
no, to learn, to
To
my
learn.
post-graduation.
Okay.
Post-graduation.
Yeah.
But I had no idea about NID much. And my reason was also that at least for next 2-3 years, I don't have to look for money, because I was getting stipend. The first reason why I got into, applied, was I was getting stipend. But when I went to NID, life changed. For the first time, I encountered a place where everybody's interested in learning. So here was two different kinds of systems. One, nobody is interested in learning, and everybody is compelling you to read and pass exams. Whereas in the other place, nobody compels you.
Is it that you think people reach the arts because they're like they feel connected with that, they like it, and somehow the more education kind of places there, it's a little like forced and a little.
Yeah.
Do you feel that
No,
psychologically
actually, I
that's
have studied this very, very closely.
yeah,
That I talk about, one is the learning environment, other one is the teaching environment.
yeah,
What we have normally in almost 90% of our educational paradigm is a teaching environment, where you have ready-made knowledge that you tell, you mug up, you have test, all kinds of drama that is going on here, and nobody's interested. Yeah? Whereas in learning environment, there is no teacher, there is no teaching. The the learner learns, and learn through experience, not through reading. That's a very, very fundamental shift that one must understand. That you engage with things, you explore, from there you begin to understand. But the problem with design education, let me tell it right away, is that all modern educational paradigm, whether it is fashion, design, art, everything is trapped within the modern Western paradigm. So it has all its problems because it also brings in the theory, everything preceding all that. So, so what they say now, that there is something called experiential learning. No?
Yeah.
That's absolutely a nonsensical term they have invented. Because first of all, is there any moment in your life that you are not in experience?
Yeah.
How can you say like
Yeah,
experiential
you
learning?
can't bring it only when you're in college or in some. It's a way of life. It's an
Absolutely.
approach to life.
Absolutely. If you look at the NID's, positive things, or design schools, positive thing is that you are engaging with things. And from there, you are trying to understand. Na? That's a very, very important aspect.
So on graduating, what did you think would be the path ahead?
No, no, I thank God I had never thought of tomorrow. I never had any plans except to live at that moment, respond to life then and there. That was the way that I always did. So at NID, it was fantastic. I spent the 3 years really exploring what are the positives and what are the negatives. You see, I always feel that NID was like a womb, second womb, where the process of rebirthing. Now, this rebirthing is that you're never born fully out. It's a continuous process of rebirthing. You're on then. You know, but it began there because it had an environment of freedom, and if you know how to take that freedom, that is good. And you know what are the traps of that freedom, better. Because you see, in spite of the freedom that you give, that you get at NID, the 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 external framework is Western.
Hmm.
So you are free to do, but free to become a Western designer. You see, because your
Losing touch with the roots. Yeah.
aesthetic sense is West. So whether you look at art schools, wherever you are, art schools all over the world function exactly in the Western paradigm. So that's a
That's
very
become the
fundamental.
accepted sort of
That
way
because
of
they don't even know that there is anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, I was able to understand that beauty is one of the key things that it needs to be explored.
Mhm.
So in engineering, I began to explore what is knowledge, how is it created, what is the process involved, and at NID that got extended to what is beauty.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
and the more I began to look at life around me, I realized that beauty is actually the delineating factor of what is a rooted culture. See, the whole notion of modern culture is absolutely problematic. You know, to me, culture means there are three aspects that defines culture.
Mm.
One is the why. Why meaning why is the ethical dimension, that how do you live? And it is decided by life, not by this is not an egoistic decision. Life, because see, life wants to sustain life. There's no doubt about that. Which means that life already embeds in you certain values that will ensure that life is sustained. Correct? No? It's not an your invention, it's not a human invention. Value. Value is embedded by life. So why is defined by the context in which you are living. And second is the knowledge, which also defined by the context. Because if you're in a jungle or if you're in a desert, if you're near the sea, what you should eat is decided by that place, not by your theorist sitting in America.
Correct. Correct. So everything is relative.
Absolutely. It is a contextual. You leave the context, you are finished. So, and beauty again is something that is enabled by the environment. Why is that a music that happens near the sea is not what happens near the jungle or not what happens near the. Because all this is evolved from the context of what the nature is
Yeah.
teaching you.
And I think also one of the main differences in Western culture and Eastern culture is that in Western culture, they like to have one rule, which will work for everybody.
Yeah.
So they, in fact, said that this was the thing in medical science also,
Yeah.
that, one rule, like if you have a headache, take a Tylenol, a Crocin, it'll fix it. Or generalized rules for anything in
Yeah.
medical sciences.
Yeah.
But in Indian theories, what is very uniquely different is Ayurveda says each individual is unique.
And which place will look
Yes,
decide it.
and each location where they so all factors impact. You can't give one generalized prescription that this will work for everyone. And so I think that's one interesting thing of where the Indian mindset changes, is that we look individually at the individual,
Yeah.
and in the West, it's for the entire
Yeah.
society. Give
Let's.
one rule.
Yeah. When we say East and West now, there is one problem. Something that I want to
Yeah.
add is that
Yeah.
all educated people are Western. So
Oh,
let's not assume that educated Indians belong to India. No.
yes, because you're very
Because,
influenced by
yeah,
that.
because you see, you become rooted only if you're illiterate. Okay, it is the senses that root you to the place. It's like the tree has the root. No? Our roots are our senses. And if our senses are killed, we are uprooted and we are no longer connected with culture.
Mhm.
What we have in modernity is a cultured people. There is nothing called culture. You know. So also I want to clarify what I think is Western culture. That's a little problematic word. You see, because I assume one thing, that every child that is born are ready to be life. They are born to live because they are with the blueprint of life. But the context is what completely kills them. It completely disconnects them from their roots. So I always imagine a situation where if you have few children from the West, bring them to India, take them, let them live with an indigenous society, illiterate society. They will not have Western ideas at all. You understand? Huh? So the problem that we need to understand deeply is that in the modern situation, you never are culturally rooted at all.
Mm.
Because first of all, culture means connecting to the context,
And
to the
now
real context of nature.
we have all these words like global, the world is a global village,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all such terms
Yeah,
go
this
out.
is all political terms. These are nothing to do with any science. It's all political terms. So modernity should be first understood as a politics in mind. Because two things, politics and commerce, these are the only thing that matters in modernity. That you control through money and language, through knowledge, everybody. So within this, if you have to really go in and understand, you have to take sannyas. What I mean by sannyas is not under some tree or some jungle, but stop reading all nonsense that is being projected out.
Me to one important decision which you took, which is to stop reading completely. And I mean, how did such an idea even strike you that I'm going to just stop reading?
Yeah, it was interesting. So at NID, when I began to look at beauty as a very, very important thing to look at, of course, I decided never to work again. That decision was always there.
Also for to help people understand beauty, what do you mean by beauty? Because everyone likes that word. Beauty sounds nice, but when you say you started to look at beauty, what exactly do you mean by
Yeah.
that?
What is very interesting is that you actually begin to look at what is not beauty.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how it happens. Beauty nothing comes to you directly. It is only every time
It's the opposite
it's
of
opposite.
it.
It's
Yeah.
opposite. You have to constantly say, no, this is not the thing. This is
This
not
is
the
not
thing.
beautiful, which means this is
Yeah, yeah.
probably
You see,
beautiful.
because at NID, I found that everybody was using Bauhausian theory and Western theories to study color and form and everything.
Mm.
And I began to wonder, why is here also West? You become do you become an Indian designer? You see,
Yeah.
because with all your Western theory inside, how do you then call yourself an Indian designer?
You're so right. I don't. Masaba Gupta, one famous designer today, she said she went to college, same like you, to learn fashion designing. And she said within a year she left the college because she said they're only teaching me about Western fashion. She said, I live in India. I want to design for Indian people. I want to bring about my, from my traditions, things that have been handed down to me.
Yeah,
And learning just Western concepts, I'm not interested. And so what you're saying
precisely.
is that's a serious thing for
Yeah,
us to look into. That why are we doing that?
yeah.
So
So
beauty is, according to you, not looking at
no,
what's
no, no, no. I will
beautiful.
tell you.
One aspect,
No, that is the beginning of the journey.
right?
You don't immediately get what is beauty. You will get a theoretical answer, and I never looked at theoretical answers. Experientially, how do you arrive at things? So luckily from NID, I also got introduced to traditional artisans of India. You know, handicraft and things like that.
Mm.
So after NID, I began to work with artisans from different parts of the country. And of course, the idea that is instilled in us is that you go to the villages, help them design, you make your design and upgrade them, that kind of a thing, like all NGOs, that's what they're
Yes.
doing.
Yeah.
Something is wrong outside, you are a okay person, you go and change them. That's a very Western thing that has now trickled down to everybody educated. No, so I also go like that to the village, to the artisans, thinking that I'm there to help them out. But within few days, I realized what a nonsense I'm talking about. This is 1,000-year-old tradition, and here I am with 2 years of my nonsense inside. I want to, help them out. I felt this is not right at
You
all.
know what you're saying? I have to share here that this is exactly what I experienced when I was painting.
Yeah,
I started to think that I'll enjoy painting landscapes. So I would think that, oh, I will make this landscape look so beautiful.
yeah,
I'll put the tree, I'll have the light. And, it's so humbling because you realize that you can't transform nature. You're
yeah,
just insane to even think.
yeah,
In
yeah,
fact, it is nature which transforms you. It
absolutely.
makes you so humble that you just go in nature and you see the beauty and you feel, what can I do here? There is nothing.
Yeah,
If I can just be true to it,
yeah,
that
yeah,
is all that I can possibly do. So if
absolutely.
I had any ridiculous ideas that I will change, I will make it look
Yeah,
beautiful,
yeah.
it's completely my foolishness.
So, as I was living there, so I've lived in different places. So in Orissa, with the Potters community, uh, I was spending time, and there was a phase when I used to read a lot, philosophy, psychology.
Yeah.
That was the time. Because after I joined NID, I began to read a lot.
Mm,
3 4 years was
mm.
a
You were
fantastic
reading
reading
a
time.
lot of philosophy, psychology at
Psychology,
that time?
issues of design,
Yeah.
culture. I remember reading this book, The Wonder That Was India. A fantastic book on India. So you see, the problem with educated Indians are that they are completely taken out of the value this culture has, or they are misled to unwanted patriotism.
Yeah,
Because I believe that to be a truly patriotic person, the first and foremost commitment is authenticity,
absolutely.
not copying the. See, there is no difference if you're copying the past or copying the West.
Yeah,
Both
still
makes you
you're still
copycats.
copycats. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. So authenticity is what is to be explored. That as an authentic person, can I rediscover what others have discovered?
How do
That's what
you?
it is.
Why do you think people are so scared of being authentic? Have you
No,
thought about
no,
why?
see,
Why do they not? Why do they resist being
this whole
authentic?
modernity is
Yeah, that's part of it.
modernity's context is that.
Yeah, that they want
So
everybody to behave the same so that you can handle them, you can control them.
yeah. So when I was living with this Potters community, uh, I remember I was reading this last book that I read when I was finishing was Walden Pond by Thoreau. A fantastic book, and where he talks about his experience of living near the Walden, that pond, and create. So halfway through, I realized a foolish thing I was doing. That I was living in a place which is very beautiful, all around green fields, hills all around, then a river nearby, and all kinds of people near me. Potters, weavers.
Yeah.
You know, and here I was wasting my time reading books on culture and experience. I decided this is it. I should start living. I should start, you know, uh, experiencing. So then and there, I stopped reading completely.
Oh, so by the time you were getting out of NID, you had stopped reading
No, no.
after
In
the
the
end of
village, in the Potters
in the village
community,
once you
in
went
the
there.
Potters community,
Huh.
that is where I stopped reading. So living with the Potters, I think the most important thing that actually happened to me after I stopped reading, I began to observe everything that was happening in the context of Potters. So my questions about beauty was always very, very importantly held. So luckily for me, see, one of the biggest damages of modern educated is that they immediately want an answer and then they want to conclude it. The most important issue is that they don't know how to hold a question
Mm.
and let answer arrive. Luckily, that was my way. So when beauty came up, no, I held it and I began to observe. And I think it must have taken quite some number of years for me to finally get some sense of it. But uh, I knew one very important thing, that there is no teaching happening at all in indigenous societies. This was very, very important thing that I realized, that learning is natural. And learning probably even begins from the womb. Because I see that it's this potter lady who's pregnant, is constantly doing this, making her pottery with that rhythmic movement. No,
Mm,
I'm sure the child
the
is
child is,
experiencing
yeah.
exactly all that. No, when I began to observe the potters community, I realized that most definitions that were given in modernity is absolutely false. What I felt was that children in an indigenous society, you know, are existentially free. That word, that's what's interesting. That word freedom doesn't exist, but they are free. Whereas we have the freedom word, but actually we are not free.
We are so bonded. We are in bondages
Yeah.
actually.
And actually the height of it is that today I think the most unfree country is the country that celebrates freedom, which is USA. Totally controlled by the market, totally controlled by so-called scientists. So you don't have any thought. It's the books that you read tell you what to do. This paradox is something that modern people are not able to understand. You see? So I felt that there is tremendous value in looking at children in indigenous societies because there is no teaching, no conditioning, and they are existentially free. What I mean by this is that children never ask permission to do anything, and parents never have a problem with that because they trust life. Life is taking care, not you and me. you know so that beingness is something that I felt is extremely important to study. Also because if you go around in the Indian villages, you go to Gujarat, you go to Orissa, you go to different places, why is it that all those places have distinct aesthetic uh, features? They are not learning, na.
So they are just creating by their instinct. They are being guided.
So they are guided by the context.
Yes.
That is why in Orissa there is one way of doing things. In Kutch or any place you take, you go to Nagaland or you go to any place, how does culture get established? It is the context that makes you do that. It's not you. Unlike what modern people think, now it's not you. But you are humble, you are spiritual by default, and you are just being there. You're guided by life. And they are producing absolutely beautiful stuff. Again, if you look at classical music, are we producing anyone that, this 20 years, 30 years ago, the masters that we produced, are we able to produce even one anywhere near that? You take anything in tradition. Can you tell me one Ayurvedic Vaidya that is the stature of anybody who has lived in a traditional society? No. We produce absolute mediocres. In fact, our slogan seems to be my birthright is to be a mediocre. It's like a celebration of mediocrity that is happening in modernity. And now it is becoming stupidity. People don't see the deterioration that is happening to humanity because of education, because of this so called development. So, see, this requires a very, very deep inquiry into three aspects of life: knowledge, beauty, and value, but without reading, by observing, by understanding
Yeah.
from your
Let's
body.
let's break it down. One virtue that you said,
Yeah,
because I think it's so important to bring clarity for the listeners that each virtue of yours. Let's
yeah,
go with one.
yeah,
And if you could sort of break it down, that
yeah,
if we wish to acquire the first, how do we need to create our
yeah.
environment? How our attention?
You see, all indigenous societies had clearly this was the condition. You see, you must differentiate between one of the biggest problems of modern humans is that we are very arrogant and we think that we are in control. The issue is that human being is a possibility. We are born as a possibility, and the external conditions can either awaken that is inherent in you or it can condition you. Now, this is the rule that you can see in the most fundamental findings of cognitive science, that what you experience shape your beingness. Correct? No? So,
Absolutely.
right from childhood, if you're being instructed, taught, helped, what will be your beingness? You become an analyzer, you become a dependent person. You can talk about autonomy, but completely taking away the real autonomy life is given.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
That is
So
so
in
true.
indigenous societies, because there is no teaching, because there is trust in life, because there is that kind of existential freedom, people awaken to their inner possibility. and that inner possibility is established by life, as I told you. You know, and because you are biologically equipped to make sense of the world, you make sense of the world. Five senses are given to you. Do you use any of that in your schooling paradigm, modern schooling paradigm?
Mhm.
You don't use anything. You see, I give you two very interesting examples. I asked this question, what is the color of sky? People answer blue,
Mm.
ready made. And the so-called creative ones will say, no, black, yellow, green, that's a out, that out of the box thinkers.
Mm.
You see, they will come up with another silly answer, right? And I asked, what is the color of leaf? Green. No doubt. Nobody has any doubt. After 2 minutes, I asked them, when you said blue, what color actually appeared in your head? And the fact is that no color appeared in their head. It was only BLU, blue, that was appearing. So, what I'm trying to say is that you are purely dealing with language. You are not dealing with experience at all.
Mm.
Whereas you, as a biological being, are supposed to imbibe actual experiences, not descriptions. You see?
Correct. Correct.
Now, this cognitive damage is something that the West has not been able to understand at all. They have great, things called cognitive science, you see. But what have they done with that?
And in fact, all the greats in any case were those who never followed these rules.
Absolutely.
When Newton was lying under the tree and the apple fell, it was his own perceptions, his
Absolutely.
understanding. So eventually, even there, even in the West, the real progress that has happened with those who did not conform.
Absolutely.
Those who,
Absolutely.
who
Yeah,
followed
yeah,
their
yeah.
instincts.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, yeah. See, another thing I want to tell you is that why is that educated by default feel superior? You see, that word has it, na? When you say you're educated, you're already up, no?
you're already lifting.
Raised.
Yeah.
You see? So the word has already instilled in you a sense of superiority. So by default, modernity is a destructive aspect. Whereas in tradition, there are no such words actually. Words are less actually. So this awakening is a possibility provided you have a condition for that.
Please sum up for us again the 3 points you
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah. So awakening to what is inherent in you means
Awakening to what? Yeah.
First thing that you awaken is to the value of life.
Value.
Value.
So that's the main,
Yeah, that's the
one
main
of the
thing.
main. Yeah.
Because see, life is happening. The life is sustaining itself because there is uh, an intent in life to sustain life, and sustenance of life can only happen if the value is not violent. So you will find violence once in a while, but that is not the underlying
Correct.
structure.
Correct.
It is love, it is care, it is trust.
Yeah.
You see,
It's just being very open to the
absolutely.
various dimensions.
There is harmony between every living being.
Yes. Yes.
That is established because that value is already
Value,
established by life,
And
not by you.
that's so essential. So
Yeah,
one is
yeah.
value.
What is value?
Next.
Second is what to do. What to do is established again by the context. If you are in the desert, you know how to live there without water.
Yeah.
You see, and people are living there now,
Yeah.
and they're not eating balanced diet as people are now talking about.
Yeah.
You see, the balanced diet is dictated by desert. You see,
So your environment actually
absolutely
guides you.
that provides you. You are healthy.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
so that
So value,
sensitivity,
then you
knowledge.
have what to do.
That is knowledge.
That
That
is
is
true
knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah.
That is true knowledge given by life, and you are just open to looking and imbibing that, because again it is not your ego, it's the life is directing you, right? And the other third is beauty. Actually, beauty actually
Beauty,
is
aesthetics.
the
Yeah.
no, beauty actually again has to be understood from the point of view of life. You see, in life there is nothing called waste. No energy is spent unnecessarily. There is an aptness in everything. And this aptness is brought about by beauty. So, beauty is the rhythm that nature establishes in you. Understand? So, again, I found this when I started living with various indigenous societies. I found that the activity they do are rhythmic. So, they are not when the potter is doing this, actually, I have done a fantastic documentation of this. The music that happens, the body that moves, and everything that happens because of that. No, so this aptness, this that you spend least energy or the most appropriate action is done because you're guided by life to do that. So, how is what defines beauty actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it is from there that every dance forms have arrived. If you look at first
Yeah.
look at any of the traditional folk
And
musics.
another very helpful thing was what you mentioned earlier, which is also what you don't think beautiful.
Yeah,
If you become clear on that,
yeah,
that no, I don't think this is beautiful, I don't think this is pleasing, even that helps you by
yeah,
taking away to really start zoning into what really feels beautiful to
yeah.
you.
So this beauty again is of the five senses. So when you like the right food, that taste, who decides it? Is it your
Mm.
ego, or is it the body?
Your tongue, yeah.
The body now,
Yeah.
because the body. See, I only one simple example experience. I was eating with few, my daughter and two, three other people, and we were eating Karela that day, bitter gourd. And those days I was a, theorist. I was concerned. I was telling my daughter, Karela is good for health, iron and all that, And the 16-year-old nearby, I tried her also. She told, no, no, I don't want to eat. And she did not refuse to eat. And this 45-year-old lady who was sitting with me, my wife, she was relishing Karela. So I asked her, when did you start eating? Oh, no, at the age of around 16, 17, I felt like eating and I started eating. No, till 16 years, she never ate. So how did she feel like eating? So when you are guided by life, by body, it will tell you what is to be eaten, what is the right time, what right food.
Mm.
So this intelligence of the body, which is biological in nature, is something that has absolutely no respect in modernity.
Mm.
Because you think that the mind has to decide everything. You know?
This example was very helpful in how our senses could actually guide us. Unfortunately, we are doing things to numb our senses.
Absolutely.
So we are on that track that let's numb them because they seem to disturb us.
Yeah. But people don't know the real value of senses. Na? See, it can be exaggerated. It can be, see, senses have a everything has a
Every
two
has
edge, na? Two
two
sides.
edges, two sides.
So what modernity is doing is actually distort your senses, but then use senses to market things.
Mm.
See, this whole modernity is living on distorted senses. Your body, your mind is dictating those senses. So you have this notion that to that for example, if you take food, you're eating mental food today, na, that vitamin B, D, W, and all that, na, and this calorie that much or protein this much. That's what you know. So it's a mind that is you're feeding the mind.
Yeah.
Whereas when the body is feeding, it will say, no, eat some mango. They immediately you sense it. No? There's a sensory connection that gets established
Yeah.
when you talk about actual food.
Yeah.
But you don't talk about actual food today.
No pockets, everything from packets,
Yeah,
protein powders, this,
yeah,
that.
yeah. And you
It's,
don't get a sense, taste at all.
yeah.
You know?
And you falsely imagine you're doing something good for your body.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So in fact, what I also wish to say here is that if you look at the modern scholarship, the whatever the universities are doing, they are studying each and everything for the purpose of improving market. That's all.
yeah.
So the study on senses is basically to see that how do you now market products to this particular group and understand the way their senses function, or how do you distort that senses. In fact, one of my friend was sharing this interesting thing. He is from Switzerland, or the country that produces milk too much, Switzerland, no? Yeah. So they had come here for some Swiss Wade project, and their job was to make the tribals drink milk, where tribals don't drink milk at all. So he was telling one very interesting thing, that how they sold the Nescafe to you. So they created artificial coffee and sold it to us, and they took the real coffee and they are enjoying it. So how did the taste was controlled by that? So the real coffee that is made here in India is exported, and that is being used by the Swiss and all those people, the real coffee. Whereas they make Nescafe with all its flavor and chemicals and all that, and that is sold to the rest of the world. I mean, it's quite a strange world that we are in.
Mm.
And
It
this
really
politics
is.
nobody understands, you see?
Every time you actually learn more and more, and so your illusions keep
Ah,
falling away about what really modernity or society. You really cannot just believe what you see or hear. And that's why really this kind of being awake, being alert, and just being involved
Yeah.
in analyzing that, is whatever information
Not
comes to
really,
you,
not
does it feel right?
yeah, not
Does it?
analyzing. Analyzing is the wrong word. Sensing, feeling, and knowing. See, actually, in fact,
Mm,
I'm planning to. I'm not sure whether I'll write a book, but at least the heading is there. It's actually sensing, feeling, being.
yeah.
Language is, irrelevant, and and knowing is incidental, because all living beings are living by these three rules: sensing, feeling, being. There nobody is trapped in knowledge. Now I'll give you one simple example. All of us imbibed our mother tongue with no effort.
Mm.
Correct? None of us knew grammar.
We just started to talk.
Talk.
Yeah.
So do you need grammar actually? And the tragedy is that if you recall your younger days, one of the most boring subjects was grammar. And you hated grammar after that. What I'm trying to say is that the sensing, feeling, being is the activity that took place when we imbibed our mother tongue. No effort. We are speaking very well. So why? What is the use of knowledge then?
Mm.
Knowledge is useful only in cases where, and that to rare cases, because in order to sustain life, you don't need to know. You don't have to have knowledge, actually. The kind knowledge, that the articulated, explicit knowledge I'm talking about. Implicit knowledge is important. Without that, no life exists. And implicit knowledge gets to you just by the act of living. You don't have to do anything about it. You know, and that every living being is living with implicit knowledge of life, right? But this explicit knowledge is where we are now trapped in modernity. And nobody even knows after all that education. The issue is uh, that if at all it is required, do you need analysis at all is the question I'm asking. You don't need at all, actually, because everything is about paying attention.
If you're so attentive, your instinct itself will guide you to
Absolutely.
what should happen next,
Absolutely.
what's the most appropriate action.
Absolutely. See, for example, if you look at classical music, you can imagine that the rules of classical music, did it come first or the music came first? The question we must ask. You see?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And how did the rules arrive? Without listening to the music, how can it even arrive?
Yes, absolutely.
So naturally, it is actually speaking that preceded the grammar. No,
Mm.
correct? No. So by paying attention to how we are speaking, we are able to decode the structure that we have used. If at all you are interested in understanding grammar, the only way, the one and only way, is to pay attention to how you are speaking. So I believe that anybody who has ventured out and started exploring knowledge are people who have paid more and more attention to how things are happening, not by reading.
People, I think, struggle with this because uh, today we live in the world of ready made. And this, what you're suggesting, requires a lot of effort. It requires
Yeah,
us being okay with being a little uncomfortable
yeah,
because you feel I have to be responsible for just what if I don't understand correctly? What if I don't interpret it correctly? Then there's a price to pay.
yeah,
So if I take the easy way out, if the book said do this, I did everything correct, even if it goes wrong,
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel no, but I followed the rules. Now, what can I do?
yeah,
Kismat was bad, something was bad, and
yeah,
it becomes a little easy to come up with excuses. But when you're attentive, I think the biggest fear is what if things don't go
yeah,
right?
yeah. But that is only for the educated people, because all indigenous societies lived in the manner I'm talking about. They
Which is
trusted life.
which is not really being bothered about outcomes. It is authentically living.
Yeah, but
That
outcomes
is
are also good, because that will happen
that will
naturally.
naturally happen.
Yeah. See, my interest in children primarily arose from the fact that in traditional societies, I find that even without any teaching, by the time children reach about 12 years, 12, 13 years, they become experts in their respective crafts. I was living with potters, and I found that there is no teaching at all, but children are free. They were doing all kinds of things. By 12, 13, they do pottery very well. Then I thought this is what I should be exploring now. I should actually document what actually children do.
Mm.
And this documentation also came to me at that time itself, because I realized that if I have to communicate with illiterate people, I have to show them what I mean. Otherwise, they will make up their own story in their head. I stopped reading. I began to observe children, make documentations, shot. Those days only, photography, and so a systematic thing began to happen. So this started in '91, around that time. And also, I was also interested in children earlier also, but the shift happened when in Potter's community, because till then my exploration was how to teach them better,
Yeah.
how to make them creative.
Yeah.
So that was the teacher's point of view, how to make the child better. You see, then I don't have to observe the child. I have to only think myself. Abhi kya karna hai? That kind of thing. But the moment I shifted my question, how children learn, then all my theory dropped and I started to just observation.
Mm.
And this documentation and observation is what really gave me an understanding of absolutely the core of cognition, the core of value system, the core of beauty that gets enabled by nature, and how these are all biologically ingrained. It's not something that you have to teach through stories and all that. Like people now know value education through stories, all absolute nonsense actually.
Because the life practically they're living is completely separate from the story you're telling them.
Absolutely.
So besides just making them more confused,
Absolutely.
telling them a story will not solve.
No, actually, they keep it separately.
Yeah. It's like in
because-
your mind you have a separate compartment.
Absolutely.
Just hear it and dismiss. Never really applied to your life.
So the fragmentation of knowing and being is very clear, na?
Mm.
That you can teach philosophy, but for example, there is a saying in the West that you can be a moral philosopher, but you need not be moral. You can teach philosophy of morality,
Yeah, but you don't have to live
you
it.
don't have to be.
You don't.
So this is a problem, no? When you are learning through reading, no?
Yeah.
So this was a very, very interesting documentation I began, and I was clearly able to see some magic happening in children's lives. That they are observing things, they are recreating that through, making it, And so this went on for some time actually. And in fact, we ran a school also near Pune. We called it Reimagining Schools, where children were absolutely free to do what they felt like doing based on their natural, nature's intent.
Yeah.
And our job was just to document. So after years of documentation, I was able to understand both the process that is involved in making sense of the world and the content of that process. That is the grammar of learning and the process of learning. These are two different things. Very clearly, I was able to decode this. And so it's like this, that when you're in your childhood, you remember keeping a notebook like this, like a like a pyramid. I think all all people must have done it.
Yeah.
The notebook is kept like this, and I found that this is done by everyone all over, which actually means that there is something that is biological about it, right? Second thing that everybody does is to recreate house-like, home-like space. For example, they would put bedsheet over a table and pretend that's a house. Or they would put an umbrella, open umbrella, and say, this is our house. Which means we recreate a contained space and say that is a house. And we play that,
Yes.
right? The third thing that we do is that whatever objects that are around in the home, you put them together and make a house. So you see three aspects of the one thing, which is the form, the function, and the process. Three aspects are being explored, and this is actually the core of what children do. There is nothing called play and toy. All these are misunderstandings of the modern minds,
This is amazing.
Absolutely. And all over you find this, all over. And I have done thousands of documentation on this. Everything that a child does is a cognitive activity, and done playfully. And we misunderstand that is play, and for play they need a toy to play with. So what I say is that toy is even more dangerous than schools, ready-made toys, which is getting promoted like anything. Scientific toys, that's a stupid term actually, scientific toy.
Yeah.
As if there are unscientific toys also. I mean, that's an assumption, no? When you give a
if you
name,
say that, you're
have to-
implying that.
I mean, I find it absolute nonsense that, modern people use of terms like this. If you actually want to understand the crisis of modern humans, the only way is to revisit children without conditioning, without creating your so-called modern environment, and studying them, observing them at that level, And then you will begin to see that, there is the life has already given them all these aspects that we are talking about. They are, by nature, they are biologically equipped to
Mm.
create knowledge of the world they are experiencing, which means all the senses are alive, you know and it is guided by life.
This is actually amazing. And, you instinctively feel drawn because
Yeah.
I think the truth is something powerful which draws you to it. I think one of the main challenges is, would you be able to provide some practical strategies which parents, a lot of them really want what you're saying, but just the way that our modern societies are structured, it's extremely hard to start thinking I have to figure out now how to go against society for everything. So are there any simple strategies of ways of operating that can actually help to avoid all these pitfalls?
No, you see, if you look at the history, and around we have taken 500 years to destroy ourselves. You can't do it in one generation. Na? More than 500 years. But I am telling this because many people won't understand what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about agreement. I'm telling they won't understand it. It is actually the printing press that is a cause of all the problems of modern mind. And people always say that no, there was writing happening in the 100,000 years also ago. But you must understand that writing was a very specialized activity done by not even 1% of a culture, not even 1%. You know, and writing demands you to have special skills. It's an artisanal activity. So everybody did not know how to read and write, which means it did not impact the general cultural psyche. But printing press changed the whole thing. That 14th century, around that time end, is the time when printing press was established in Germany.
Mm.
So in the 18th century, there is a term in the Western history called Age of Reason. Now, Age of Reason, and reasoning is again an overrated, low activity which people are promoting like anything, because reasoning is an activity you can only do with what is known. With in the realm of unknown, reason has no role at all. So the very rise of reason is because you're dealing with ready-made knowledge, ready-made information. So it has taken 300 years, starting with the printing press in Germany in 14th, 15th century. That slowly the printing press got established all over. More and more books came out.
Mm.
So it naturally took about 300 years to establish a culture of readers.
Mm.
To read means to read somebody else's written. It's not your writing anyway,
Yeah.
right? So first you establish a second-hand thinker. Second, you also provide a cognitive tool like reasoning to understand what is written. Correct? No. So reasoning is something that straight away came out of dealing with linguistic information, because language is organized always in a rational manner. That is not the way how life functions.
Yes.
Life, there is a simultaneity about it. Every senses are functioning simultaneously. Whereas reading is an activity that is very linear
Mm.
and it is sequential, one after the other. Imagine writing about a tree. Where do you begin? You see?
Mm.
You see? So after 5 pages, you will get some idea what a tree is. But that is history that you have made in your head.
Mm.
You see? But looking at a tree, immediately you grasp it. Na? So there is a world of difference between a literate beingness and an illiterate beingness.
Mm.
You know?
Mm.
So what I'm telling is that this requires a very deep critique of everything that is promoted by modernity. But at the same time, one must understand that every newborn child is coming with the possibility of right now can be done, because the child is coming with this original biological capacity to be. Without any help, it can be alive, it can do things. The only context is the thing that we need to look at. Now let me tell you something else along with this. See, Fukuoka, when he started his do nothing
Do nothing farming.
farming, yeah, he suddenly, there was an insight. He realized that you don't have to do farming, things happen. It was actually a spiritual kind of an understanding. It happened to him. And uh, and exactly this is what is actually required in the modern context, that we have to begin with do nothing parenting, which means that, but it requires certain kind of fencing around. What I mean by this is that, again, I went to and I saw a farm done by a person. He called it do nothing farm. But he did one thing, which was to fence the farm so that the external influences are not put in, so that the at least the fenced places will regenerate by itself. He didn't do anything after that. That is required even in the context of do nothing parenting, that you have to create an environment of absolute freedom to a child, and you shouldn't be helping, and you should bring back processes into life, because ready-made knowledge has now extended to ready-made consumption. Everything is now ordered outside, you eat
We
from,
literally just have become consumers.
that's
From creators, we have
absolutely.
become consumers.
So unless we understand that this process is what is important, process needs to be brought back. So simple processes like cooking in the kitchen, make sure that because I think kitchen is the most important place for us, because in kitchen all your five senses are functioning.
Mm.
And you have to, of course, recreate an environment where children have freedom. That so of course, see, the thing is this, that every new generation is giving us a possibility that right now we can change. Can we recreate an environment that is of processes, of trust, by default mindful, not because of a workshop, but by nature you be mindful, no? So but that if there are more and more educated people who are willing to undo the damages that is done to them, then there is a possibility.
Mm.
And also, we have to, I think the only way we can do is to re-understand children. There is no other solution. And that has to be undertaken by each and every one of us. Because this second-hand knowledge is the crux of the problem of modernity. See, in tradition, everyone was creating knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas in modernity, this is stopped completely. So it's a centralization of knowledge creation, and it's only information that somebody produces, that too in the West, because nothing happens in India. We are like ration shop owners, distributing knowledge, and that's what is happening. So
Considering that we were the land of the Vedas.
oh
and the
yeah,
first
we
written text.
also now
So
talk
that
about
is-
Vishwagurus without taking responsibility for creating knowledge. That's absolutely not possible. That's a strange idea that is getting promoted. Vishwagurus. I don't know how we can, such mediocres, how can they become mediocres? I don't know. Unless you take responsibility of being an authentic person, not reading that book and this book, but being an authentic person, get the source from life, then you can then you will realize that you don't be a Vishwaguru, because everybody is a Vishwaguru. How do you even assume that you can be a Vishwaguru without having an arrogance inside? That itself is anti-life.
Absolutely. That's so profound.
That's, these days what you have is life coaches, no? The most, unlively way of putting it, no?
Yes.
Yeah, because the moment you understand life, you will stop coaching completely. Because life itself is learning, na?
This brings me to the other term that I found extremely offensive. That can you teach children how to be creative?
Absolutely.
It is offensive. I mean, the only people who have some hope at creativity, you are
Yeah.
all set on killing that.
Yeah,
By
absolutely.
thinking that you can go and teach them creativity.
Yeah.
I think this clarity is not there. That
Even
the
mindfulness,
only
same thing, na? Mindfulness.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
default, children are mindful and creative.
Yeah.
Both now are being taught by educated fellows.
It's ridiculous because I think the first requirement of both of this is originality. It's
Absolutely.
what do you wish? What are you desiring?
Yeah.
What are you kind of curious about? And the minute you bring something in, it could just be an idea, a thought. You have killed the other person's originality.
Absolutely.
They're now they're thinking like you. So now they are no more creative. Their creativity is completely gone.
Absolutely.
And I think this clarity is not there. That where it comes to teaching, that has its own place. So all you can teach is basically a skill or a how to.
Not
That,
really. Not really.
that,
I'll tell you the damage of modernity. The
Yeah.
fundamental damage of modernity is the fragmentation of the mind and body. And teaching is an activity you can only do to the mind. See, I'll tell you one very interesting thing. Some years ago, somebody was telling me that yoga, you should never read, see yoga on a book, read a book, and then practice. What happens is that when you read and you look at the picture, you're first teaching the mind, and then the mind is teaching the body. You see, for example, you take another example of coaching swimming. The coach is going to teach the mind first through language, then you will go into the water, and then you recall, and then you start doing. you're fragmenting the body and mind. True learning is an activity where mind and body are functioning together. And this is the crisis of modern man.
Yeah.
That fragmentation of mind and body, and it is because of teaching, because of our dependence on language.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any amount of teaching is harmful.
Right.
Because see, if you look at tradition, there was no teaching at all. There was only learning. But there was an environment of
Yeah.
created.
Yeah.
Because
Teaching, more from the point of view of just providing kind of laying out some kind of a system. Because, for example, if you want to paint,
yeah,
if you don't even let the person who might want to paint in oils, in pastels, so if you don't just lay out something for them, they, besides just being just continuously, it'll take them a long time to come to where we are. Because we have all these colors, we have systems in place which actually can make life much easier. For example, in colors, what are earth colors, what are transfer, what are opaque colors, what, and they will eventually get it themselves, and probably more powerfully than when they have been already pre-told that this is what it is.
absolutely.
But
See, I want to share with you
something,
one very interesting exploration I did. This was when I was in the Potters community in Kerala.
Mm.
I started working with children. I call it sensing nature, knowing nature.
Mm.
A simple activity where children went around, picked up different colored leaves,
Mm.
and started recreating them using paint.
Mm.
Luckily, I didn't have money at that time. I mean, even now, I don't have money. So that time, I only bought those 6 colors.
Mm.
If I had money, I would have bought 12. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're white, black, blue, yellow, green.
primary and
Yeah,
basic colors.
that now basically what you get, that 6 colors in poster color. I found that all these children, and they are from illiterate society communities, so there was no teaching at all. They had no idea what is called art, and I found that all these children were able to mix, match, and get the accurate shades of different colors that they were able to.
Mm.
There was no teaching at all, and I had done the same workshop with teachers in a school. None of them could do. But what I did was that I also called in the drivers and the ayahs. They were able to mix and match and get the color, not the educated people. So the act of teaching actually destroys your actual cognitive process, which is intuitive,
Mm.
which has nothing to do with reason. Teaching and all that traps you into a mechanical reasoning orientation,
Mm.
whereas you are actually, equipped by life to understand things in an intuitive manner. Why do you want to kill that which is far more important? No? Let it take time. Why do you want to destroy your
I
system
think that's
through?
what we are not willing to be patient. We, like we put in the seed today, we
Yeah.
plant it, and we want the fruit tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think we are just not willing to be patient. That you need to keep nurturing, even if
Yeah.
you can't see anything from that seed.
Yeah.
Nothing shows, but you have to continue just nurturing it until the day it's ready to come out of the earth.
No, the impatience is the product of modernity. Na?
Yeah.
So it is not, again, it is not something that is natural.
Yeah.
If you look at all the ills of modernity, it is because of a misunderstanding of what is to be human.
Yeah.
All the psychological issues that you see here, it's all a result of modernity. And what modernity is doing is that first you destroy, and then you say that now you are saving everybody by doing, inventing these things. Like
How do we escape modernity even? It's
No,
all
we have
around us and everybody senses it.
Yeah.
But I think everyone feels powerless in a way that they don't know how to break, from the shadow. They recognize it. But again, in the moment, they will stay. They will conform to society.
Yeah.
They want just that safety that I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be separate. So, in a way, one interesting question is, when you take a stand like this,
Yeah.
you are separating yourself from society.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy place to be.
Yeah.
Because everybody has this inner desire to be liked by everyone.
Yeah.
And you can only be liked if you're ready to be.
fall in
if
line.
you fall in line, that behave yourself, then we'll like you.
Yeah.
Now, what are you saying? This is so different. No, you can't be liked.
Yeah.
Because you're daring to think something different.
No, I'm paying price for that. Not one institution invites me today because I say be authentic, which is very disturbing for institutions. And you look at this country. Can you tell me one institution that is creating knowledge? One institution in this country. Can you tell me any institution that is involved in research on beauty? No institutions. Their assumption is that whatever West has told is the right, and we follow it. The Vishwagurus. you know. Well, that price has to be paid, because, and I'm frankly, I don't want to compromise, no strategize. Tell what is there to be told. Listen if you want, listen. Otherwise, leave it. I think that this is like a virus. It'll go in. It's not that it's not disturbing people. It'll go in, it'll stay there, and maybe one day, you know, it might come out. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that voices like yours need to be heard because change, even if it might not happen overnight,
Yeah,
it's when voices that have seen the truth, have understood and
yeah,
identified where the real problems are. I think when these voices become large and as a collective,
yeah.
that's when we will really be able to transform something.
So that's also, there is also a censoring of voices. No, that's also happening. In
Yeah.
fact,
In
somebody
fact, the
had
voices are being shut down. They are being completely stifled.
In fact, some time ago, somebody had approached me to do a TED talk. So when I told this is what I'm talking about, they quickly withdrew. And there was something called Josh Talks or something. Na? Some
Yes,
characters
yeah,
have
yeah,
contacted me from there
yeah,
also.
yeah.
But the moment I told this is what I have to talk about, they dropped out.
You
So
know,
this
this
is
is
the scare,
terrible.
that
No,
people.
this is the. In fact, I just shot a podcast yesterday where I said something which might not be politically correct. And the guest last night actually called me to say that, Chandana, please be careful because
Mm,
this may not, what you spoke may not be politically correct.
yeah,
And I feel, you know, we've become a generation that has become so scared to speak their own authentic
yeah,
truth.
yeah,
What you feel, what you have understood to be the truth, you can't say it if it is different from what society has decided.
yeah.
If you say that, then they'll come down to bring you down. So it's really become very challenging
Mm,
in
mm,
how do we bring about the authentic voices if we are not willing to listen to them, if we
mm,
are not willing to believe maybe there is something more than what we have been brought up on society. We have to be open to hear voices
yeah,
that are giving us another perspective. And if we are
absolutely.
not open to listening to them, if we are just going to bring them down, how will society be able to
Yeah.
progress? So I
In
think
fact,
this
yeah.
is very
In fact, the
concerning.
problem that I always have is that, see, people want practical solution all the time.
Yeah.
And in the
They
name
want
of
a ready-made
practical,
answer.
yeah, and the name of practical solutions, they don't want to know what we should be doing.
Yeah.
I differentiate between what we should be doing and what is possible to be done. And people don't want to engage with what we should be doing. So naturally, they make it even further mediocre with, the idea of practicality.
Yeah.
I think, we need not feel guilty at all that if we are not able to, that is fine. But we should at least know this is what I should be doing, but my context doesn't allow me to do it. That's okay. Nobody is going to, uh, pull you down for that. But at least you knew that, oh, this is what I should do.
Yeah.
But,
And I think
uh,
that, you know, just what you're indicating that you're okay with not being accepted,
yeah,
not being, you know, called
but
to
it's
be
not easy.
celebrated. It's
It's not
not,
easy.
it's not
It's
easy.
a very lonely
It's
life in
very
one
lonely
sense.
life in a
Yeah,
sense. And I think that these are the real challenges
yeah,
of those who dare to walk an independent path,
yeah, yeah,
that this is what the real issue is. And I really think we as a society need to start thinking that if we really want to go into the truth, if we want a better way of living, we are going to have to
yeah,
take this path of respecting, appreciating, honoring those who have the courage to really find their own path, who are willing to do the hard thing of experiencing, of being patient, finding their knowledge and progressing. Because that's how we will all slowly get inspired, feel that there is another way from this feeling trapped all the time,
yeah.
that there can be a better way of exploring life. So, you know, really kudos to you because what you're doing is something really rare in today's times.
Yeah, people get scared when I say I don't read any books, because without books, how do you live? Yeah, whole modernity is trapped on books only. And if you see these activists, they will, provide one more book to read, one more book to read. So you keep on reading books, and you think you are an activist. You see?
You know, writing could be helpful because at
Mhm.
least what you've read, it you have to first make sure, have I really understood this? Otherwise, you won't be able to write
Yeah,
anything. So, if at all, writing could be, could be encouraged, but reading is completely somebody else's perceptions that they have put down, and you believe this is the ultimate truth.
So, in fact, I have written 2, 3 books. And so, one very important thing that I tell right from the beginning is that don't believe in one word I say. Number one. Second, reading should be done in a very different way. See, today the reading is that you want to understand, and somehow you put all your effort to understand. No? I tell no, don't read like the way poetry is read. Don't rationalize. You read, let it be there, and let understanding take place.
That's so
It's a
beautiful.
very important
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You see, of course, can I tell you some new projects that I'm now
Please,
thinking
please,
about?
please share with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one activity that we are doing is called Do Nothing Parenting Workshops, where we are getting parents to recreate an environment where they learn from children and not from me. That I make it very clear. I will tell you my experiences of what I have seen. But in order to see that, you have to recreate an environment. Yeah? That environment means no toys in the house, no reading of books, kitchen down, less furniture, so the child has maximum space to crawl and do things. And then you observe, document, share. So that's an interesting group that has started where parents are, and it's a fantastic journey because all these parents have actually unlearned. So unlearning basically means reclaiming your authentic senses. Unlearning also means undoing the damages that modernity, reading, thoughts have done to you. That is unlearning. It's not reading another book. That won't make you unlearn at all.
Mm.
It is to reclaim your natural cognitive system. That is what unlearning is. Which also means that you have to go through a process of first understanding the damages and then work on it and reclaim your natural cognitive system. Now, this is what is happening to parents who have been part of this
Mm.
exploration.
Mm.
In fact, the other very interesting thing that I'm now proposing is what I call as listening to the wombs or messages from the womb, which is that right from the conception time, listen to the child right from here. Don't depend on a doctor to take decisions. For example, you find that many pregnant women get vomiting
Mm.
sensation.
Mm.
Immediately, a doctor has given you some medicine. You take it in and you kill the sensation. That's what is done by everybody. But somehow I began to feel that it is the child that is giving an indication that the food you're eating is wrong. The child is actually changing your senses. It's actually cleaning you up.
Yeah.
You listen to the child. No? So I am actually thinking of starting a group of women who are interested in journeying together with me
Mm.
on learning how to learn from the womb. What are the messages it is giving? So the biggest problem of modernity is that we can only understand, communicate only in the realm of language. And actually, the child begins to communicate right from the womb. Until about 2 years, there is no language at all. So we are totally absent to that time. I think, see, traditional societies, language uses very, very less. They were more sensitive, intuitive. They were able to understand things from completely in a non-linguistic manner. And so this is very important that the mothers begin to sense right from the time the child is, you
Mm.
know, giving information, messages from inside. Till about 2 years, this is very important that you don't force the child into language. You see, because now what is happening is that you're forcing the child into language for your convenience, because then you can start talking. But for a child to actually root themselves to the world in a really deep manner, language must come in a very slow manner. The child must root themselves with all their senses directly, not through language. And then language should come later that. So this is a very important
You know,
activity.
that I think one of the biggest challenges today is I've seen postings on social media of literally small babies who are barely learning to hold anything. Parents put a phone in their hand with it might be just cartoons or something, but they are conditioning them
Yeah,
from
yeah,
an age where they are barely understanding
absolutely.
anything, and now that child is becoming addicted from a time when it doesn't know anything. It doesn't know, all its knowledge is coming from that phone.
In fact, I feel that one day we will regret that we have ever invented mobile phones. It is extremely dangerous for children. It is actually rewiring your brain. Now, see, this is something that the West has not studied systematically. That, first of all, they have not understood how literacy has rewired your brain. That it's a completely no thing for them. They think that's a upgrading, and they call it higher cognitive function with the language. What I say is that there is something called a primary cognitive source. Primary cognitive source is the world. Senses are your tools. Without establishing this, no understanding of world can happen. And this has no place in their educational philosophy. So this is a very, very important thing that we must understand, that whatever the child experiences is what will make their the network of the brain neural network will be
No,
shaped
and the
by what they
problem,
experience.
yeah, and one real problem is we don't know to what extent this damage is caused because children are seeing such inappropriate things from
Yeah,
such a young age that
yeah,
it gives them, I feel that they are all becoming very, very confused and actually afraid about because at an inappropriate age
yeah, yeah,
just information is coming to
yeah,
you which is something you
yeah,
can't handle, you
absolutely.
can't make any reason of it, it's just not appropriate. And how are such then young children start to become fearful, or then some people start to act out
Yeah,
what they are just seeing and consuming, and
yeah, yeah,
that is like really
yeah, yeah,
dangerous to
absolutely.
society.
No, so modern study is very poor on cognition. This is what I have to say.
Yeah.
You see, I want to ask you one thing. Like, if you want to study the nature of dogs, what will you do? No, I'm giving a
Yeah. Yeah.
imaginary scenario. Now, most people will read one book on dog and do their PhD. That is the main thing. Second option is to study the pet dogs in your house because that is convenient. But you're already studying a conditioned and
Mm,
trained dog.
mm,
Third option, which is a slightly better option, is to study the dog on the street because it is still has some independence and it'll. But actually, if you go to a jungle
yeah.
and see, then that is where you understand the nature of dogs.
Yeah.
The study of children has the same problem. Most study is on Western children who are completely conditioned. You know? So their ideas of cognition is damaged, their ideas of psychology is damaged. If you actually study a child in a rural indigenous societies where there is absolutely no teaching, you will see how actually nature functions, how the cognitive network, this neural network will happen, because how the world will shape you. See, it's like this: if you are engaging with the word will shape you. If you are engaging with the world will shape you. And if you're engaging with the digital will shape you. And when the world shapes you, all your five senses will function. When the word shapes you, none of your senses will function. And when the digital shapes you, you have an absolutely distorted, shaping by the eye, because other three senses won't function. And the voice will function, but in a very edited manner,
Mm,
because the what you say, what you see in the digital and what you hear are mismatched
mm,
and edited and so you have an understanding of a world based on the neural network that is shaped by digital information,
yeah.
and you are not in control of your system here. You know that is a wrong assumption that people have.
Yeah.
I want to share one or two more interesting examples of how the context is more important. I used to have a friend who had a limp.
Okay. A
His
limp.
child started limping. He had no problem at all
Yeah.
because his father is limping. He also limped. There are even deeper examples of feral children, like a child who was brought up by dogs because her parents were all the time drunk, both father and mother. Child was always with the dogs. So when she was around 10 or so, that people found that she is behaving exactly like a dog.
Mm,
She's barking, eating. There are many such cases.
mm,
So we must understand one very important thing, that human beings, unlike other living beings, are born with potentials. It has to be drawn out. A dog will bark anyway, but we will not have a dog will not have a Russian bark or an Indian bark. No?
it'll be its own
So,
bark,
so, so
whatever it
you
is.
are
Yeah.
speaking English or Malayalam or Tamil or Marathi because the context is what is shaping your language. No?
Correct.
So
Correct.
if the language is shaping you, then your whole system can be shaped by that. So even your ability to walk can be destroyed if the child doesn't see anybody walking till 10 years.
Correct. Correct.
You know?
We observe
Yeah.
and we
And
we
we
learn from
imbibe.
that, we imbibe, and we just start imitating without
Absolutely.
knowing.
This fragility of our situation is something that West has not understood.
Mm,
And this also means that our possibility is both ways. No? It can be an excellent Growth also. If we have excellence in the context, we become excellent. It's very simple. If we have mediocrity, then we become mediocre. There is no choice in that. No?
Correct.
So recreation of excellence processes is what is required actually.
From what you said now, I just recalled what you said a few minutes before about the food,
Yeah.
about the parent force feeding.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine in the US who is a pediatrician, and she was actually sharing a very interesting observation. She said that she has clients from America
Mm.
and she has Indians, since she's an Indian, she kind of
Mm.
gets a lot of the Indian parents too. And she said a very interesting observation she made was that all the Indian parents complain to her. They say, my child just doesn't eat.
Yeah.
Only Indians, huh? Only Indian parents come and complain to her, my child doesn't eat.
Yeah.
And the American parents say, please, my child is eating too much. It is, we get all this coke, we try to hide it because childhood obesity is quite a issue there. It's very strange. In the same place, children going to the same schools,
Yeah.
how is there such an opposite problem
Yeah. Yeah.
that in the US, children are eating too much? And then here, Indian parents are complaining, my child is not eating. I have to force feed him. So my friend said, I tell the Indian parents that don't, have you ever seen a child die due to not eating? Don't. If they say they don't want to eat, just don't give them anything.
Yeah.
They will be fine. Nothing will happen to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the American parents, she said, I just tell them, please only keep healthy food in the house.
Yeah.
Do not keep unhealthy food.
Yeah.
So it's so strange that how we have, how we take ourselves, how we take our understanding.
Yeah.
We have to cut off from
Yeah.
just the reality of
Absolutely.
things. It's so obvious and in a way so simple. Why have we complicated everything so much?
And the height of this destruction of modernity is that now parents now need to be coached to how to parent. No?
Yeah,
I mean,
everybody, a book, when I was pregnant with the first gifts I got were how to parent. I mean, the first thing I got were books, how to manage, how to. It's
yeah.
actually very strange
Yeah.
that.
So, do you think this species should exist at all? A species that doesn't know how to look after their children,
I
it
know.
should just wiped out. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, if they don't know the dog, the cow, the lion, the tiger, everybody knows
yeah,
how
yeah.
to
Except the
raise them.
modern
Only
educated. Let's say
humans who
not
have
humans, not
broken.
humans.
Okay.
Only the educated. The illiterate people know
They know
very
how
well how
to.
to
They know
live.
how. Yeah, educated people
Yeah,
need somebody to tell them
yeah. How to what to do.
everything.
Yeah. So, isn't that the problem of education then?
Yeah, it's really actually. It sounds almost as if it's crippling.
Absolutely. The most criminal activity is education, as far as I'm concerned. Total disrespect for life. And then what are we producing? Absolute mediocre people. You tell me, with this education, has they produced any true genius?
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the best experiments I did was when I worked with Potter's community in Kerala. And I called my method do nothing methods, meaning there's no teaching. You don't have to have a name for that. What I meant is that there is absolute respect for people, that they know how to do and what to do. So I only create an environment because I'm now sent there to do that. No? So this experiment was to work with a village of potters, where my focus was how to create self-respect in them. See, the problem of modern Indian is that there is no cultural self-respect.
Yeah.
Even when he talks about India and great India, he's still using the Western framework in that. So he's fundamentally living with an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
So I realized that my work with potters or any artisanal community is to create self-respect. So I did not bring in any tools, any ideas, anything. Just created a space where I respected what they know and what they do. So with that very very minor changes, we created we call it Kumbham murals. We started doing all kinds of experiments there. Women were doing free handmade tiles, murals, and all that. So that was an interesting experiment that is worth looking at, because I think that the modern intervention with traditional artisans have been extremely harmful for artisans, because what the West has done, the Indian designers are doing to the artisanal, because they are just homogenizing what they have learned. Everywhere now you will find, whether they are from Bengal or Bihar or Kutch or anywhere, the same style will now begin to happen because they are the one who are pollinating it. You see, If an artisan is doing it, there is a different thing to that. They are looking at something, they are seeing something, they are uh, so there is a very intuitive way in which they assimilate and incorporate that into their design. But this is not what is happening. An expert is coming and telling them what you should do, and then they are changing. Now, I believe that what really required is in the cultural actions. In cultural actions, we look at aesthetics and knowledge creation as a primary aspect of interventions. That first you respect their knowledge that they have. You don't have to bring in your knowledge, no? and and then also, if at all required, help them to expand their vocabulary of beauty. Looking at more things, but from their
From what way seems natural to them. Not that, you're just separating them and you're just making them fit something into your thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So actually, what has happened, what the problem of education has been that we are now brown sahibs changing the rural people. This is all. What the white men did to the brown Indians, now the brown educated Indians are doing to their lesser so-called underprivileged people. That's all. So I think this now. I think it's too late now to talk about this because this section is already done. There's hardly any craft that can be called authentic. This is something that I started talking in 92, 93. There was still some hope, but I don't think anybody even took any care of this. So, but now by 20, 30 years,
market driven. It's just, whatever.
completely now finished off. So I think what I think is required is a total reimagination of life. Totally. And in order to do that, I've been offering, not I still don't call myself an expert, but I think I'm inviting people to kind of take on a very different journey together. So I offer what is called as natural cognition retreats. No discussions there. Because in natural cognition, because it is not linguistic, it is not argumentative. Suppose, I show you this cup. You're seeing this cup. Should we argue on this? Should we analyze on this? So natural cognition, because it is sensorily located, there is no question of arguments. Argumentation is a modern problem because we are totally trapped in language. So we can argue, discuss and all that now, have more and more ideas.
The mind games never end.
Absolutely.
There's just something more to
Absolutely.
keep just adding.
Absolutely. And this is the same problem with art. Because art, like everything else, has been turned into a mental activity by modern people. They have to think about it. So you go to an art gallery, you have to think. And actually the role
I've
of
experienced this. People come to the exhibitions and they'll say, yeah, what is this? What is she thinking about?
Yeah.
Or what were you thinking about when you made this?
Yeah.
They won't just take it as an experience.
So bringing back, we also do a retreat called Being in Beauty. Now, being in beauty means stopping your thinking completely and just observing and bring your senses back. Now, without the senses, no access to knowledge, no access to beauty. There's no shortcut to this, no? So you have to get back to your sensory experience of the world without the mind coming in between, not the mind-directed observation.
Yeah.
Which is, again, this is what the mind, see, the mind is very tricky. Mind is always creating ways to distract you.
Yeah.
So there is this new word called embodiment. That's the latest that the West has found out. Embodiment is another trick the mind is playing to keep you, again, thinking about the body, you see.
Somatic.
Yeah.
This
All
another
these
word.
terms
All
are
these
all
words are
mind creating the traps. In fact, no, there is a very interesting statement by Milarepa, that Zen master. Milarepa. He says that spirituality is the last ploy of the mind. That is exactly what is happening in the modern world. Their mindfulness nonsense and meditations. All these are mind creating more and more tricks, and people are thinking they are very spiritual. We're thinking about it. So same thing is happening with body. Embodiment is something that the cognitive scientists have suddenly discovered, like the way they discovered America. Sudden discovery has been made, body exists. So again, it's the mental game they are playing because it is not through the mind that you have to understand the body. It is the body that should tell the mind, now you put it, you have to stay in one place. The body has to put the mind in its place. That is not what is happening actually. So what I feel is that there has to be a complete reimagination of all the terms that, words that we've been using. So a new imagination is that, that children as the basic unit, we have to re-look at everything that we have been thinking about. Children as knowledge creators equipped by life. So the idea is to set up something called Center for Culture, Cognition, and Childhood, where childhood is seen as is the stage when they are creating knowledge autonomously. Naturally, cognition is the activity that is connected with natural creation of knowledge. It's not merely a mental idea which what has been thought of like this. And culture is the space that is the interface that is created with nature's presence for human to survive. So it's a interface between nature and humans, the culture. And the presence of culture is always important because it is the culture that is awakening you.
Mm.
It's the nature that is awakening you, and culture is formed. Because, see, in the modern context, there cannot be culture because the process orientation that we are born with can only be retained by nature
Mm.
because we are process oriented. We are not product oriented. Modernity only has a space for product orientation. So these are, invitations that we are, you know, so we also do some online engagements with people who are willing to explore this together
Mm.
with a clear thing that it's not about teaching. It's really about enabling how to
How
address
one can
your damages.
approach, yeah,
Yeah,
how just to
yeah,
approach
yeah,
concepts and
yeah,
allow oneself to start exploring
yeah, yeah.
differently.
And also to point out the stupidity of what modern humans are doing now. For example, I'll give you one interesting example. That today in the West, they are teaching how children to tilt, that tilting over, no? Crawling, their parents being taught how to help the child to crawl.
Oh my God.
And this stupidity is something that they are not able to see. This is height. I saw another video in which, see, when children sit on a sofa, naturally they are going to bounce. You
Uh,
know, and now I saw one video of the parent teaching another parent how to stop the child from, whatever natural things that the child will do, you put a stop to it.
And I think I thank you so much for this really um, enlightening and enriching conversation, because voices like yours really need to be heard, and to be patiently heard with an openness to understand the value that they bring. Because um, otherwise, really, all this being stuck, being trapped, that really our society, our generation feels, there is no way out of this trap if we do not allow new voices, new thoughts, new possibilities, if we are not willing to encourage and bring them into our lives. There's really no way out of this. And so, thank you so much for bringing in a totally new concept. And we really hope that more and more voices such as yours, which are seeking authenticity and which are allowing us to really just connect with everything that is natural, which is organic, which is true. We hope that such voices are allowed to exist and to roar. So, thank you so much once again for bringing all your wisdom and life to the Creativity Dialogues.
Thank you.